I pull up in a ratty high school truck. He's in a brand new Audi A8. And we walk through and he's like, yeah, I like it. And I was like, oh, I forgot to ask, have you been pre-approved? And he's like, oh, I'm paying cash. And I was like, I'd never heard of $50,000 cash at this point in my life. I was like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. He ends up buying a couple houses within that week and says, can you manage these? And I was like, I live at home. I don't even rent, let alone rent to somebody else. And he's like, well, do you want to learn? And I was like, sure. So he ends up buying 100 properties.
Welcome to Unfiltered, the official podcast of PropertyManagement.com. I'm your host, Dylan Scroggins, joined by the founder of PropertyManagement.com, Mr. Matt Speer. Have a special guest today out of Bakersfield, California, Mr. Nik Boone, CEO of Ascend Real Estate and Property Management. Nik, how are you?
Hey, doing well. How are you guys?
Doing well, doing well. So Matt is currently in 0 degree Indianapolis, and you are in what, 72 in sunny California?
Yeah, I think I'm doing a little better than Matt right now.
Yeah, my bones are cold. It's tough go here in Indianapolis, but we're powering through.
Well, we don't keep track of this yet, but I feel like you're like our second or third guest from California. So we're big fans of the West Coast. And how long have you been in California?
34 years.
Lifer. I like it. So
Yep.
you weren't some, late 20s popping over there. You're not a transplant. You're born and raised, huh?
Yeah, born and raised. I just got back from Colorado, so I get to go visit these cold temperatures, and then I get to come back and enjoy my weather here.
I like it. I like it. Life hack. Well, kicking us off, would love to hear just a little bit about Ascend Real Estate and Property Management. Give us the high level, a door count, a little bit about the area you're in, and in general, some of the services you provide.
So we are right around 1,800 units that we manage, comprised mostly of single family or duplexes, fourplexes, all of the plexes. We have a couple of 20, 30, and 40 unit buildings, but really we hammered the single family or like under 4 unit market. We have about 30 employees, give or take, any given month. We offer sales, property management. I'm a licensed contractor, so we do construction, remodels, all of that stuff, all internally in-house.
Love that. Well, what I appreciated about your LinkedIn profile is that you still had Starbucks barista on there as one of your first jobs. So can you still make a mean cortado?
I have to for my wife every morning, so yes.
That's hilarious.
I
I actually
haven't
met the
looked at
latte.
my in a long time. I didn't even know that was on there still.
Yeah, no, keep it. It's great, man. It was years ago, but I like it. Well, good stuff. Well, it sounds like you offer a lot of the same kind of, what's it like, philosophy of Starbucks. It's like you got someone comes to you wanting anything. It seems like you can provide it.
Basically, I mean, I had a really big identity crisis for a long time because we offered a few different things, and I really disliked the guy that tries to sell you insurance and solar and your house. And then the big reason we took so long to do construction or anything like that was because I didn't want to be the jack of all trades, master of none. And I started in sales. I know we'll probably talk about the origin, but I started selling real estate, just a normal realtor. And so my identity through managing 1,800 units wasn't a property manager, it was a realtor. So I had to really shift my mindset of, hey, I'm not a salesperson, I'm not a realtor, I'm a property manager now, and that's my new identity. So I have to roll with that.
Awesome. Well, let's keep rolling with that. So tell us a little bit more about how Sin Real Estate and Property Management got started and tie into your own personal story in that too, if you don't mind.
I think there's a lot of people listening to 1,800 doors. I mean, we've got a lot of listeners from 200 to 20,000 doors, but a lot of that like 200 to 500. And so they're hearing like, Dylan's talking about Starbucks, barista into, you're a realtor. And then it's like, you got 1,800 doors. There's got to be a story behind how you went from A to B there.
Yeah. I love telling it. It's a really good one. So when I was 18, I got my real estate license, started selling real estate to basically pay for college. In my head, I was pre-med at a local community college. If you can be pre-med at a community college, that's what I thought I was. Sold a couple deals, got hooked on real estate, still finished college. But as I was going through, I had an investor call me with an LA area code. And at 18, 19, I was like, yeah, this guy's a billionaire. This is basically Elon Musk calling me. So I was showing another client, I answered it, and he said, hey, I'm in town from LA. My realtor stood me up. Can you show me some houses? And that to me is like, yeah, like let me leave this client right now so I can go meet you. So I printed a bunch of houses. This is bottom of the market, 2010, 2011. Houses in a part of our town were 50,000, 60,000. And so we show up to this $50,000 house, very Beverly Hills, LA. So I'm starstruck. I don't even know who this guy is. I pull up in a ratty high school truck. He's in a brand new Audi A8. And we walk through and he's like, yeah, I like it. And I was like, oh, I forgot to ask, have you been pre-approved? And he's like, oh, I'm paying cash. And I was like, I'd never heard of $50,000 cash at this point in my life. So I was even more, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. He ends up buying a couple houses within that week and says, can you manage these? These are going to be rentals. And I was like, I live at home. I don't even rent, let alone rent to somebody else. Because I'm transparent. I'm a wide open book, been that way my whole life. I don't know why. And he's like, well, do you want to learn? And I was like, sure, you keep buying properties and I'll learn whatever you need me to, short of anything illegal, like I'm here to help you. So he ends up buying 100 properties. And so I'm managing these properties. I'm going to college full time.
Like, in what period of time did you buy the 100 properties? Was that like over the course of a couple of years, or is this guy just a maniac and it was like 3 months? That's crazy.
No, it was, I mean, we used to look, he would come into town. This is when MapQuest was big. MapQuest would only go A to Z, and I would have to do 2 MapQuests because we were looking at more than 26 houses. So, I mean, if he saw it, he liked it, he made an offer on it, and he would close on it. This was within, like, I would say 18 months. Like, it was fast, at least 1 or 2 a week. And so
Wow.
at this time, I'm selling him real estate, managing his rentals, have other clients that I'm selling real estate to, still going to college full time and trying to maintain some sort of semblance of like sanity.
Yeah. So you're in college, or, it's like you're in class with, talking about, Econ 101, or I don't know what you said, but it's like you're really thinking about, when do I get to go drive around with this guy and buy more houses? These checks are getting crazy. I'm sure they were just stacking up. I mean, I remember when I was like, I think I paid my student loans off or something. I mean, I'd flipped a handful of houses and I walked in there with like a check for $32,000. I thought I was Elon Musk. I'm like, man, look at me go. And it's like, you had to be feeling that way, right?
Same story, yeah. I the day I graduated, I wrote a check for my loans and had no debt. But yeah, I mean, I remember vividly, this was like I was a year and a half, 2 years out from graduating, and the college professor's teaching me how to shake hands professionally. And I'm making 6 figures or more at
More than the professor, for sure, at
more than
that
the
point.
professor. And so I remember having this like, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy. And I almost didn't graduate. I had really at that time had to decide, like, do I see this through or do I start my business and just start my life? And the investor actually, like, he's been really impactful in my life. I asked him the same thing. What do you think I should do? He knew how much I was making. He knew what I was going to college for. And I ended up seeing it through, and I'm glad I did because, now it's on my wall. But it was, I think the good thing about college is it's delayed gratification. I didn't see the benefit of it, but I still finished it, kind of thing. So then this is a long-winded version of the story, but so I'm slammed at this point and I call him and I say, hey, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what you want to do. And he said, well, we can either go to a property manager and you can just do the sales, or you can hire an assistant and I'll pay you what the assistant costs. So we interviewed a bunch of property managers at the time. Very not good. It was a tough thing to find that a good property manager. And so I said, hey, let me just hire somebody and you pay me what that person makes. So then this was $10 an hour at the time. So I bring my first assistant on. I'm 19, 20. She's 35 or 40. She gets everything done. We have no work orders. We have full occupancy. And she comes to me and she's like, hey, I don't have anything to do. Barely know how to run my life. I don't know what you're wanting me to do. So we decide at that point, let's start Ascend and see if other people need a good property manager. First year we opened, we grew like 100 doors. And we're like, okay, like there's a need. And then the next year, another 100 doors. So we were at 200 doors. And so I hired a few employees, and then, we learned that when tenants move out, you need to fix it. And so I brought some handymen on and then got my contractor's license and just kind of kept filling the need that my clients had. And it essentially turned into this.
Yeah, I remember when earlier in your story, it's like I quit. I was like a year and a half into like tech sales job, and I was real estate investing on the side, and I just got a promotion like on the sales team. And I remember telling my parents that I was quitting and going full time into real estate investing, and they're like, "Why did I pay for this like liberal arts school? It's like this private university and you're just quitting and supposedly you're doing well. But yeah, I think it was, that move to finish school is probably a smart one. Kept the parents happy. But you mentioned like you kind of jumped from like, all right, you've got the assistant, things are going well, she needs more to do. And then you grew a few hundred doors. Like, how'd you get that first few hundred doors? Like, I assume it was like referrals and sort of like maybe kind of a spider web off of the main investors network. But you tell me, like, how did you go from that? Because a lot of PMs are like, how do I, they're looking to add like 50, 60 doors in a year. And you just like jumped off like a rocket ship.
Yeah, I think two things. The first, I think there was a need. I think people wanted. Literally, we started January 1, and we had people sign up January 1, like waiting for me to say you can come on board. So I think there was a need for a competent, good property manager in our area. The other thing is, I think I'm really good at being dumb, and so I sat back and I said, if I were to look for a property manager, having no clue who anybody is, what would I do? And this is when Google Business and Googling like SEO wasn't a hot topic. And so I just hammered reviews and just the same keywords, and property management Bakersfield. And like, I literally just hammered. That's what I would do. I would search this phrase and I literally just picked that phrase and just ran with it. And that has been a huge lead gen.
Yeah. And for anyone listening to this that isn't looking at Ascend's profile on propertymanager.com, 4.6 stars, 1,200 plus reviews. I bet that number's up since we brought you into our system. I mean, I think when I was doing the data, like we did like a deep dive on Google reviews and we wanted to sort of correlate to what's the volume and rating for the companies that are landing in position 1, 2, and 3 in their local market, like property management, Bakersfield, California. What we saw was that the magic number was, if you sort of peak out at 4.4, then it's sort of like diminishing returns. Like you could be a 4.4 or a 4.9. There's not a whole lot of difference. So you're 4.6. So you're in like that elite tier. And then the 1,200 reviews, volume mattered 4 times more in terms of correlation than the rating did. And so then you just crushed the volume. And it sounds like that was your rocket ship initially. Is that right? Or were there some other channels that you push beyond this, just the reviews?
The reviews were the big push, and nobody really understood it. And when you tell your employees like, hey, try to get reviews, they don't get it. The other thing was word of mouth. Once we started doing a competent job and managing it well, it spread quickly. And so, that's another, we have realtors refer us all the time.
And so you've experienced too. So you've experienced the impact of Google reviews, Google business profile, SEO. Like we're now in this big transition to AI search, right? People are looking on Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity. Anyone that's listening to this, it's like, that's just a fad. I think we're past that. Yeah. It's now like, I don't Google things anymore. My wife doesn't. She used to make fun of me for using ChatGPT. She uses it more than me now. So how does that impact your approach? How does the transition into AI search, ChatGPT, Gemini, people finding businesses differently now, how does that factor in? I mean, you guys are sort of at the top of the SEO mountain. Is this something your team thinks about?
The podcast is called Unfiltered. Can I cuss? Because it scares the crap out of me. Unhumbly, we're at the top of SEO. I think we are currently at the bottom or middle of GEO. And it's something that I've been thinking about and implementing for the last 9 months. And it has not improved that significantly.
So when you say that you're thinking about this, what are you thinking about and what are you trying to implement?
Well, again, I used the same dumb. I started using chat when it became popular. And so I said, hey, if I'm using chat, it's only going to be a matter of time before everybody else my age uses it. And then once my parents start using it, that's when everybody's using it. So I kind of see it headed that direction, as I'm sure most people do now. And even if it's nothing better than a more advanced Google search right now, it's what, it's taken so much market share from SEO from Google that, it pulls so many different avenues. And so like our Google, amazing. Our Yelp, full of tenants that hate us. And so chat, Gemini, whatever, uses all of these review platforms and says, yeah, they're cool on Google, but pretty hated on Yelp. And so they give this very like, they're okay. Like they have pretty mixed reviews. And this is what chat tells me about my company. And I'm like, chat, you don't know what you're talking about, but that it pulls everything. And so to just be great on one platform isn't going to work.
Yeah, I mean, so that's amazing. A lot Dylan knows this is like, I obsess over this. So I want to touch on this a little bit more. And I think what you're talking about with Yelp, the problem is Yelp, Reddit, right? So we're in sort of the first 5% of this transition into AI search or GEO, whatever you call it, right? It's this transition into, we use AI tools to go find and learn things and do things, right? And that first wave was, let's train these models. So like if you work at Gemini with Google, or you work at, with Perplexity or ChatGPT at OpenAI, like you're training the models based on the publicly available data on the internet, which they've all chosen. I've been in San Francisco talking to some of these people at a conference or two, and it's always like, well, yeah, Reddit and Yelp have all the data. And so they all train on that data. And so right now that matters, but you ask those same people, you go, hey, but that's not a good solution for like a local business, like a property manager. They're like, of course not. Well, they're like, well, the next phase is going to be proprietary data to help. That's how these tools are going to differentiate. That's how a ChatGPT is going to have better real estate related answers than a Perplexity does, because they've got proprietary data sources that aren't, sourced via just Reddit or Yelp. And I think, obviously, not self-promoting here, but like propertymanagement.com, that's what we're laser focused on, is surfacing that data on the profile so that it comes up when people look. And, I did a search here for, I said, help me find the best residential property manager in Bakersfield, California. And like you said, you're in the middle. You're in a list. It's a table. There's 5 companies. You're slap right in the middle. And it talks about things to look out for. Like, I think the next question is like, what's that person then ask? They're going to ask about the specific companies. And, I said, hey, you referenced Ascend. Did you use, what sources did you use? And it's Better Business Bureau, Zillow. It references propertymanagement.com, mentions your true match score. So there are ways that it's like you can control that narrative, but it's like, it's not about doubling down on Yelp and doubling down on Better Business Bureau. It's going and finding those different sources, I think, so that you can stand out.
Yeah, that's what we did. I was going to plug propertymanagement.com as well. Just, it has helped our GEO. We do look at the BBB. We do look at Yelp. We do look at Reddit. And it's, the thing with Yelp, I could spend an hour talking about Yelp. We have 150 unrecommended reviews from real clients that are awesome, completely unrecommended in their algorithm. So I don't know how to fix it. And so we kind of just looked at the things we could fix, which was the BBB, Zillow, Google. Those things we can fix. We can do better work and get better reviews and fix people that are frustrated. And like, there's nothing I can do for Yelp to recommend good reviews or bad reviews. That's just an algorithm. And so we haven't given up on it, but it's literally the bane of our existence.
I think it's a short-term problem. It's a big problem, but it's a short-term problem, right? You rolled out surveys. You're rated, I think, in the top 30, top 25 in our list that we released. And you implemented surveys. You were one of the first companies to do that. And I think you have 8 or 9 responses. So not like a massive amount, but you clearly sent it out. I think you had a 10 out of 10 on like overall satisfaction and maybe leasing performance from those surveys that came through. And I'm reading Gemini right now. I asked about Ascend, and it says, performance metrics, a 10 out of 10 leasing performance, finding tenants fast. Like, so it's about how can you push data into the internet that's going to surface when people are like, because that's what they care about. Like, I think when you get a person on the phone, like a prospect, you can talk someone through, like a potential client, a homeowner, investor, you can talk them through like the problem with Yelp. And then they're probably gonna be like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I use Yelp to find restaurants. I wouldn't expect to find a property manager. So now you can change the narrative to like, here's the facts, because it's all about facts now. So that's interesting. So what do you think the next steps are, and like, how does this all play out? Because you saw it play out with Google reviews, business profile mattering, and SEO. Like what's next for the industry? Because I'm sure this is top of mind for really everybody that is looking for more leads.
Yeah, I don't think Google's going anywhere. If you look at the average demographic of people that own investments, it's not us. It's our parents or grandparents, or, they're still very much so on Google. But I think that's going to change more rapidly than Google took over from like the Yellow Pages. Like it'll switch one day, and then it's either 50-50 Google and chat, or however the market goes. But it's something that we think about constantly, and my marketing gal, Bella, she'll tell you firsthand, like every single month we look at what we did was ask chat, hey, how are you pulling these metrics for Ascend? What websites are you looking at? We put all those websites into a matrix. the ones that are rated bad, we have in red, the ones that are rated good, we have in green, and we promote the ones that we can, and we help the ones that we can. But like Yelp and BBB, it's pulling these as accredited review sites, and they're the worst for reviews. We asked the BBB. There was an instance where somebody that didn't exist submitted a bad BBB, and we had proof that this was a fake account and that literally none of what they were saying was true. Not like they hate us, not like we're the word, like factually just incorrect person or data from a non-existent person. Their stance was, we don't remove reviews, period.
Unless you pay us $1,000 or whatever.
We paid the $1,000 and they still don't remove it.
Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, I call it, it's like you're taken hostage, and you're not even dealing with a logical, like the person that's taking you hostage is not being logical. It's difficult. Is this a problem for lead generation and growth, or is this a retention churn?
Just lead. I mean, I don't know the numbers on like attrition rate for other companies. Ours is more than I thought it would be from people selling. Very rarely are they just unhappy with us and go somewhere else. But a lot of people sell their properties. A lot of people, if it's a single family home, will move their family back into the properties. People will move out of California. So, we grow 20 to 30 doors a month right now, and we lose 10 to 15.
Yeah. So about 7 to 10% churn, which is top notch. I mean, it could be worse. Trust me. I mean, Dylan and I are talking to so many property managers, some of the best in the country. And like, I can tell you if you're under double digits there, it's especially at your scale, because your scale presents other challenges. So that's super impressive.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, no, I mean, we see a lot of information on kind of the DNA of what makes property manager tick. But Dylan's like, hey Matt, digress on AI search.
Yeah, I know. Sorry,
it's not the thing that matters right now, but I think it's so important. So I think it's cool that you guys have focused on that so heavily.
No, I love the intentionality, and we say that there's a side drinking game for Unfiltered of how many times Matt mentions AI search. So I want to get back to the 1,800 doors. Especially in California. We hear, there are certain states where it's more difficult to do business, but we've also been surprised to hear that sometimes those states that you think would be more difficult to do business, it's actually good for business because the property owners don't want to deal with it. So walk us through that and working in a at least perceived highly regulated state, maybe not in your area, I don't know, but talk us through how that's advantageous or disadvantageous to your business.
No, that's great insight. I hadn't thought of it like that because I have friends in like Kentucky where they're like, hey, we serve a 3-day notice and the tenant's out in a week, and I'm like, wow, that sounds really nice. But it is advantageous in the sense that if I just owned one property and a tenant sued me, or as good as we are, we still combat like these free lawyers that they hire for the state and laws that are just, we have a law that just created 30 days ago that if you're not up to date on everything, you will lose immediately. If you do one minor thing wrong on a notice, you will lose immediately. And so the problem with that is we have to educate them on how scary it is, and that they really, we're a property manager, yeah, but we're also your legal advice and we're compliance advice. And, we're not just paying you a check. I mean, I wouldn't want to go against a tenant in California without somebody out with me. I mean, I get to go in there confident and knowledgeable and having gone through, we get sued. I have a stack of lawsuits at any given time.
Yeah, you said we could be completely unfiltered. That's the nature of the show. So I think when I was a property manager, I still consider myself a property manager, but, I've sort of exited. And I remember the first lawsuit we got, it was so stressful. I'm like, oh my God, like my name's on this document, like Marion County Court. I'm like, what? This is terrible. Like, and it was completely unjustified. And it's like, we win that suit, but then you get sued again and you become more and more numb to it, which becomes kind of weird. So like, how many times has this happened? And, have there been times when you're, is it 9 out of 10 times, like kind of how I felt, where it's like, hey, we didn't do anything wrong. We just need to communicate this. And, but I'm sure there's also times where it's like, man, it's 1,800 doors. You probably do make mistakes too. And like, we definitely did. So I'm curious just how you mentally handle that. And also, what are your systems to handle that at the scale of 1,800 doors?
Yeah. what I try to keep into account, because we do, probably 20 plus lawsuits a year. I look at it as that's not even 1% of the total business that we do. And so is 20 a lot? Yeah, it's a lot of lawsuits to go through. Not for how big we are. It's really small. And I've accepted that real estate is just the most emotional asset people will have. And when they feel wronged, they feel wronged. To me, and I'm an odd duck, I love going to court. And I've narrowed down the reason why, because it's such a weird thing to say. Rarely in life do you get somebody to say, you are right and you are wrong. And that feels really good.
That's awesome. I love that perspective. That's so true. Yeah. It's like there's finality to like, hey, yeah, my arguments with my wife, we don't argue very much, but I've learned I'm rarely right.
For
And
sure.
I don't think I've literally ever won. So at least in, you get sued, there's a silver lining. Sometimes you're right.
And 99% of the time we're in the right. That's not to say that I love just, smacking down on somebody. Most of the time I'll give them advice before we go to court and say, hey, here's what's going to happen. I'm happy to have a discussion and kind of go. And the unreasonable people will, learn the hard way, and the reasonable people will come to an agreement and, figure out a solution that's best for everybody. But yeah, I mean, it's just part of that. That doesn't even take into account employee lawsuits, wrongful termination, workers' comp, you name it. That's also a whole nother side of the business that we get, issues with.
I want to zoom out a little bit, just to property management as a whole. You've obviously seen a lot these last, close to 20 years now. You've been in the game longer than some people who are probably older than you. What are some trends that you see? Obviously, we've already talked about AI search, but just in general, what are some other trends that you see at a regional or national scale in property management that you think our listeners should know about?
Yeah, great question. Aside from AI, if they're not tech forward, they will get eaten alive. I did a podcast a few months ago, and I had somebody reach out to me last week from the podcast, and they still do paper applications in office, and they have a pager for after hours emergencies. I hope he's not listening, because I'm not calling him out.
For those people under 30, can you describe what a pager is? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. The first time I've heard that too. You need to implement systems, and you need to have everything dialed. And there's so many technologies out there that can help with it, but you have to invest the time to understand them and integrate with your company. I think just implementing systems, so we do key checkouts where people would come check a key out and look at a property. And until a couple months ago, that was all paper. We're on iPads now, so people come in and everything's just kind of streamlined so that, one, we can avoid errors, because you add 30 humans to anything and there's going to be just errors with the amount of volume we have. And two, it's to just keep track of everything more efficiently.
What are your three, between your core system, maintenance, leasing, like what are the core systems tools you guys are working with there?
Well, we use Appfolio, so that's kind of our database. Obviously, you need that. Aside from that, we use a company called Lead Simple, which helps automate a ton of the leads that we get. The other thing that I think is really huge is just our website. Our website, we spent a lot of money and time and energy on, and we get a ton of people that look at it. It's clean. It has the information that they need. We're not a cookie cutter website where you just go on Appfolio and say, hey, build me a website. And that also eliminates a lot of calls too. They can get everything they need on our website, whether you're a tenant, an owner, anything like that. And it's laid out super friendly. So the third thing I would say, probably something to do with like inspections, something like that for people. People are kind of just doing inspections, but it's kind of the bane of existence too. Move outs, move ins, security deposit disputes, stuff like that.
Yeah, it all makes sense. Having a firm system for that.
Yeah.
Well, Nik, we really appreciate the time. We're going to start landing the plane here. One of our favorite questions that we asked on a whim to a friend of the pod probably 2 months ago, and then it became a staple, is the reality is property management's tough. It is not for the faint of heart. You've obviously seen a lot of things. You talk about lawsuits like it's, playing a game of golf. So you got some loose screws, and I mean that complimentary. How has property management changed you as a person?
I would say that property management, I think, has made me more, probably, I would say callous, but I think that the business has made me a lot softer and more friendly to reasonable people. I always tell people, if you're reasonable, and this is tenants and owners, because anybody in property management, when you sell real estate, the phrase is buyers are liars and sellers are worse. I say that tenants are liars and owners are worse. And I tell my staff this, if you're reasonable, we're the best company you've ever had. If you're unreasonable, you will hate us to the end of the earth because we're really fair. And I've had tenants try to get one over, and I've had owners try to get one over. And as long as somebody is a reasonable person that can have a conversation, we're really the middle ground of that person. So it's made me more callous in the sense of, if you're just going to scream at us, then I could care less. The first thing they threaten in California is I'm going to take this to court. See you there. If you're looking for a solution and we're all reasonable, then we'll be the best friend you ever had.
Love that. Yeah, you don't need MapQuest to find your way to court.
Yeah.
You've been there. You're probably nodding at Jeffrey at the front desk and saying, "Hey man, hey, what's up, Nick? You're back."
Yeah, the first instance of going to court too much was helping somebody else out. And before I checked in, she said, "Mr. Boone, will you help her?" Or she thanked me for helping her. She's like, "Thanks, Mr. Boone." And I was like, "Oh no, that's not good." So,
Yeah.
And
Some people there's
gotta,
some
like,
people you
add
don't
her-
want them to know your name, and one's a
Yeah.
judge.
And you got to add her to like your Christmas card list, or like it starts to get into like, what's going on here?
it does. And Bakersfield's really small. So I had another instance of a different judge where I flipped a property and he was the buyer. And we had to disclose that we didn't have a relationship, but he bought my house. Like, weird.
Great. Yeah, the king of Bakersfield right here. Well, hey, once again, we've been impressed. I think what you're doing and looking forward with the AI search and really digging deep, I mean, even building that spreadsheet, I mean, that's a very tactical piece of advice that a lot of our listeners can use. But then a lot of the stuff you share, just, I mean, the reps alone that you have in going from 100 to 1,800 doors is amazing. And it's obviously your competitive advantage, and no surprise that you're doing well. I feel like you should be a repeat guest. We'd love to have you on again. There's a lot of stories that I feel like you can share with us and insight. But wrapping up here, just for our lightning round, got 3 questions here. We'll try to move pretty quick. What is your current favorite tool or app for your business? It does not have to be a PM tool, but fine if it is.
Lead Simple. I have no financial incentive, but they've been really great for lead gen and follow up.
That's awesome. A book or podcast every PM leader should check out.
E-Myth, hands down.
E-Myth, nice.
Probably a
Baker,
recurring
I've-
answer.
Love that book.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's
Well done.
actually not. Traction's probably the most frequently mentioned, but I got E-Myth on my Kindle right now. I haven't read it in like 10 years, but I need to check it out.
I think I read the version like E-Myth Revisited.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I literally felt like I had like, I read that book and I felt like it was writing to me. I was like, hey, unbelievable. Yeah. So great call. We don't get that one much, but
Yeah, gosh, we're all like reminiscing on E-Myth. The baker, man. A baker can't always run a bakery.
Yeah.
All right, last one. I say it's rapid fire, and then I'm like going on rabbit trails. One word to describe the future of property management.
Automated.
Ooh, I like that.
he says automated, but he doesn't want me to. We can't talk about AI.
I know. He like
Rapid-
ends it with a hot take, kind of mic drop moment, and it's on the rapid fire, so we can't.
We
talk
keep
for an hour
saying
about
AI.
that.
Is that a new thing? I'm not sure what.
Yeah, that's awesome. For those over 30, we'll explain to you what AI means another day. Well, cool. Well, Nick, we hope to see you soon. We'll be at Broker Owner in New Orleans in the podcast minivan mobile studio. If we see you there, I'm going to make me a cortado. I hope that's okay, but I'll buy you a beer in exchange. So really appreciate you jumping on, and it was awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's a Mercedes Sprinter van, not a minivan. Okay.
I know. I got to work
come
on
on.
my plug there.
Come on.
It's on my calendar to go, so hopefully I see you guys there.
Awesome, man. No, it's pretty sweet. It's not like some janky Winnebago.
I've
It's
heard.
pretty slick.
Oh, I meant the event, but yeah, that sounds nice too.
That's awesome. We're only thinking about the van here. Awesome, man. Well, hey, Nick, have a great weekend in beautiful California, and we'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Bye, guys.
All right, thanks, man.